Say It Skillfully is about being who you really are and saying what you think needs to be said, even at work. Whether you're part of a small project team or leading a giant company, the more you accept that you're part of the problem, the faster you can be part of the solution. Join Molly Chang today as together we break the silence and learn how to be happier, healthier, and more productive at work and in life.
Hello, Molly here. Welcome to Say It Skillfully, helping you find the words to create shared reality in a way that's true to yourself. This show, are we ready? Celebrates the 150th episode of Say It Skillfully. Woohoo! My heartfelt gratitude to listeners all around the globe who tune in, keen to be true to yourselves, succeed on your terms, and speak up positively and productively in any situation. Your energy and knowing you're finding your voices is so gratifying. Thank you. So, of course, I have an extra special guest who's been with me on this Say It Skillfully journey from the get-go. He's an unassuming fellow, so let me shine a light on just a few of his past roles. As a strategist, he was part of the Ogilvy and Mather team in the mid-90s that helped transform the IBM brand from arrogant to approachable. The Chartered Institute of Marketing named him one of the 50 most influential thinkers in marketing and business. As an entrepreneur, he's raised or helped raise $20 million for startup and entrepreneurial ventures. He was also the resident marketing guru for 250 entrepreneurs over 5 years through the Birthing of Giants program. And a serious skiing enthusiast. He's on the slopes about 50 days a year, often 90 minutes at a time. I will personally vouch for his ski instructor skills as he's helped me a great deal on my swishing around. Having written several books and with many years of ghostwriting under his belt, he's now in the business of co-creating, helping entrepreneurs, consultants, and coaches expand their intellectual property. His own newsletter reaches 130,000 loyal readers each week, and his 850,000 followers on LinkedIn appreciate his grounded tips on ways to succeed in business by actually being a decent human being. I am beyond blessed that my dear friend, Bruce Kasanoff, is joining us. Bruce, welcome to Say It Skillfully.
Thank you, Molly. I have to say, I was listening to that intro and thinking mainly about how you have so figured out how to help people with Say It Skillfully, but more than that, how to be succinct and so tuned in to helping people understand the things that they need to understand. I remember, 3 years back more, and you had so many ideas and you didn't know where to start, and now you just really know exactly what you're doing, and it's wonderful to listen to you and talk with you again.
Yeah, I have the biggest smile on my face because you were here and I am living proof, folks. Again, remember, I didn't speak English until I was 5, right? So I have my own radio show, which is kind of hilarious on its own. And I just remember you have such genius in being able to net it out and be succinct and be clear. And I was kind of a lot of stuff floating around and just couldn't really spit it out in any cogent way. So I do have to say, I feel good with help from folks like you to have, kind of gotten out of my way. Obviously,
well, you see that a lot though, because people who have a lot to say, they get so excited. They're like, "Oh, I got to help! I got to change the world! I want to do this!" And that's definitely what you are. I want to change the world for the better. And it's hard to okay, but I need to do one thing, and then and you Say It Skillfully really has given you the platform to do that. So it's very gratifying to watch.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I have to go back to the very first time because I am, at my core, I'm an introvert. I mean, I like people and I can be very social. And so I'm not inclined to be a big social media person. And I remember a conversation with you, and obviously a big shout out to Marshall Goldsmith, which is how we even met, the MG100 group, right? But I remember we were like, who cares? Put it out there. If someone looks at it, great. If they don't look at it, it's no big deal. And I was like, okay, so I had that little iPhone. It might have been an iPhone 4 or something. Mm-hmm. And I recorded this video and, you were like, just go for it. I'm like, okay, Bruce said, go for it. I'll go for it.
Right.
I thought 10 people would watch it. And Bruce, I think when I added it all up, I think 36,000 people watched that first video.
amazing, isn't it? Isn't it? And it just keeps going.
Yeah, it just is crazy. So, folks, I want you to know that Bruce has been near and dear and just someone who's been, true as a friend and truthful, right, with me. And I think that's really helped me. So, Bruce, just a huge shout out to you.
Oh, thank you. Likewise. Likewise.
Yeah, it's so fun to be in these just like love fest relationships, folks. So, okay, so this is a deal. I mean, Bruce is more than familiar with the show. And for all the space that you create for others, I'm really grateful for you willing to share your own personal journey and for listeners to get to know you and the ups and the downs of your journey.
Sure. I think I say sure, but we'll see. But
Well, you start wherever you want to start. And I do want to just acknowledge you because I also know that you are all about others and oftentimes not someone who talks a lot about yourself. So I really appreciate you for going there.
well, so you want me to just kind of give you like the where I came from type of
Yeah, start at the
thing? Okay.
beginning. I mean, some
Okay.
people start at age 5. You start wherever you want to start.
So I have probably more than most people. I have these segments in my life that are completely, and they almost feel disconnected. I know they're not, but they almost feel that way. But just so people know, Molly, who's very professional, sends your guests. So here's how we do it. We'll talk about your early childhood, and then we'll go to, college, and then we'll talk about your life and what have you learned and what challenges. And so I knew in advance, and also from doing the show previously, what to expect. And I said to Molly, oh, I basically coasted until I was 20. And by that, I mean, I lived in Boston. I lived in a neighborhood. Boston at that time was very segmented by race, by ethnicity, I'd say by religion, but as a Jewish person, I was like the only one there, and except for my brother. And and so I basically just wanted out and tried to get my parents everywhere I could to move out, but they didn't have money, and so we couldn't move out. So we stayed in Boston, and I hated it. So I eventually, I got all A's until sixth grade, and then I said, "Well, I'm still in the place I hate," so I just stopped trying. And so I coasted through high school. I went to the state college, and it wasn't until I got it. I can actually tell you the 30 seconds that started to change my life, which was I was one of 60 students at UMass Amherst who was hired to, they had a new 2,000 seat theater and they needed just bodies to help put pipes up backstage and hang curtains and whatnot. And so I did that and I stayed on as a, $3 an hour stage crew. And I would do whatever people told me. Pick up the cable, bring it over there, pick up the light, bring it over there. And after like 6 months of this, the production stage manager, he ran the whole backstage. And he came up to me in the middle of the stage and he said, if you had a little initiative and you didn't wait for people to tell you what to do, you could become a crew chief. And he walked away. And a crew chief, there were two students who were like, they got to run the lighting board and they got to be stage manager and they got to tell other students what to do. And it just had never dawned on me at that point in my life. Kind of, I don't know, I wasn't aiming for anything. And I was like, that sounds cool. So I became a stage manager, a crew chief and then a stage manager and then a lighting designer. So that was where I started to actually have a life. I started to do things and I guess what do I say? That was my first incident. I remember I had a friend who was also on the crew, and he actually said to me like a year later, he said, "I don't like you at the theater." I was like, "What are you talking about?" He said, "You're bossy. You tell people what to do." I'm like, "Well, that's my job." And he said, "Yeah, but you're kind of a jerk about it." And so that was the first, and I didn't spend too much time or energy on that at that time because I just thought he had a couple of beers and he was, in a bad mood. But in retrospect, I realized that was the first ever, say it skillfully moment I ever had, which was, gee, how do you start to assume responsibility without all of a sudden becoming the jerky bossy guy. And I'm not sure. I mean, a big part of why when you were wrestling with what to do, which became Say It Skillfully, I remember the thing I would say to you over and over again was, I understand the theory of what you say, like we all should speak up and we all should say something. If we don't say something, then we're just as responsible as the guy at the top or the woman at the top who's, built this culture. But I don't know how to do that. And to this day, I still feel like that. I feel like I know how to listen to people. I know how to paraphrase what they say and how to be understanding and supportive, but I do not necessarily know how to have difficult conversations where I'm personally uncomfortable with how they might react. And so I think some of this is like, wow, after 40 or 45 years, it's amazing that it's still hard.
I really appreciate you calling that out. And I just was sharing with someone because it seems so, to your point, like intellectually you kind of get it. Like, wow, if I don't speak up and people don't know, then I'm kind of contributing to the problem. I'm not a bad person, but I get that it's on me. But I think that's a great part because it shows the driver for change. Like I want to speak up. And then part of it is like the how do you do it? And before that piece is just that notion of it actually is possible. I think so many people are way before you, Bruce. Like they don't even think it's possible.
Right.
And then if they think it's possible, then part of it is the confidence thing, which is, drum roll, I'm pulling together a program to really just help teach it to people in a very basic way because it's absolutely learnable, and that's where I would share with you. And, for God's sakes, if I told you, don't have time for all the unskillful moments that I've had. So,
Right.
So this is very fascinating. I didn't realize, this, these friends, you don't really hear the whole story. So thank you for sharing that. So academically, so did this stagehand, kind of confidence and being something, in that universe translate to your academics? And I mean, how did you translate that to like getting a job and all that good stuff?
Well, so I do pretty horribly at UMass, but I graduate, and I worked in the theater 15 to 40 hours a week. So at times I was working full time in the theater and going to school, and I did become a crew chief, and I did do, I just worked all the time. If there was a show and I could get on it, I would work on it. And that was a professional roadhouse theater, so Broadway shows and touring companies and national ballet companies and some concerts and jazz performers would all come in. So it was a wonderful broadening experience, and it was a wonderful work experience, although I didn't realize it till later. And then I go to Boston, I go to WGBH in Boston. I somehow stumbled into, after volunteering to get in the door, and because it's really hard to get in the door, and I eventually wrote my own job description because I was so desperate to get out of the fundraising office. That was the way I got in. And I gave it to my boss's boss's boss. And because I knew that no one, immediately above me would get me out of the position I was in. And 3 weeks later, he came back and he had crossed out the title. He gave me back literally the same piece of paper I gave him, and it said capital campaign coordinator because I didn't know they were going to do a capital campaign. So that's how I got myself out of that place, which was really not so much saying it well, but having the initiative to say, who can get me out of this purgatory that I was in, and he did. And the interesting thing is that I had to make a decision. I'm going to alienate these two people that were immediately over me, but I made the bet that if I did that, I could get out from under them. And I thought I would never be anything under them, but working for this person, I would be. And it worked. I could have gotten fired, but it worked. And that too was the same lesson that Lou taught me on the stage at UMass, which was if you had some initiative. And so that's really been the kind of theme of my career is, okay, it's time for some initiative, do something different and get off from under this. The communication thing, the interesting thing at WGBH, they did on-air fundraising, and it was a television as well as a radio station. And my, 25-year-old brain by that time said, "Ooh, I want to be on television." And so I did everything possible to get onto live television for our fundraisers. And I did. And I got to the point just before I left for business school where I hosted the Channel 2 auction on the last night, Saturday night, with 300 people in the studio for a big party afterwards. And I just had the most fun of my life to that point. And which is how I kind of figured out, I kind of like it when, success is actually gratifying, and that's when I decided I like to be with the smart, interesting people with initiative.
I'm curious, did your parents, like, what was because this notion, it's so interesting to me that you weren't like Mr. Initiative, just because you seem to be someone who gloms on ideas. Like my experience of you, Bruce, has been you see an idea and you're just really to jump in and try it,
Right.
And so was that at home? Did you just see that wasn't something you were supposed to do, or you were penalized, or was just something you had no?
So my parents had two very diametrically opposing forces. My parents absolutely raised us. It was just my brother and I, younger brother, and they said to us, "You can do anything you set your mind to do," but they didn't do it. And it was only years later that I really that tension really came into focus for me. That wow, somehow I believe them, but I also watched them get stuck. I mean, they both died young, and I'm convinced that a big reason for that was they just felt so stuck, and they couldn't practice. It was like the next generation. You can do anything you want, but we can't do it, and that gave me. So I was torn, and well, I mean, think about it. So I'm doing everything possible to get out of my neighborhood around 10, 11, 12, 14. And they're saying, we can't afford it. We can't change. We can't do anything. We're here. We can't. But you can do anything you want. And so it was confusing. And until, I really got out on my own. I mean, I would say though, that I am absolutely immensely grateful to them, because I have learned that if there is one gift you can give children, it's unconditional love. I felt that, and therefore I have the confidence to try and fail, which a lot of people who have more talent, or certainly equal talent, don't have that same, courage or ability, because they don't feel as secure. And I just think if there's anything you do for a child, it's just I love you even when you mess up.
That's amazing. Talk a little bit about your relationship with your brother.
My brother is a film producer. He lives in Los Angeles. He's 2 years younger. He actually, we both went to Wharton Business, so he got there a year ahead of me, which shows you he's kind of scary smart. But you wouldn't know it, because he's a film producer, and he's in LA, and he so he very, very capable, very creative person, independent film producer, and we've been close pretty much all our lives. He has a completely different life than me. He's single, and lives in LA, and which is a very different way to live. I've raised 3 kids who are now all adults. And yet I think it gives us both a window into worlds that are different than ours. I don't know if I should tell this story. I probably won't tell that story. Basically, it's like, how do you put yourself in someone else's shoes? Through my brother, I've done that my entire life. He's completely different than I, although we have similar values. So it lets me do it. And every now and then he'll call me up and say, "Do you have time? I got to talk to you. I'm out of practice talking to normal people." And literally we just have a conversation, And so it does. He's done things to me like called me up and said, don't see the movie. I forget it was. It was like The Departed or one of these movies that was set in Boston. He's like, you can't watch that movie. You'll have flashbacks. Yeah, because it's so Boston in 1960s, 70s, and so accurately done. So we have, it's like anything else. If you're in the battle together, then you're close for life.
That's fabulous. Well, the gift of family for sure.
Mm.
So talk about just the career journey and then having these three amazing kids that you have.
Um, so I have, well, first of all, as you well know, I was married for 30 years. Um, and sadly, on many levels, got divorced a few years ago. We were two career couple, and my wife worked incredibly hard on Wall Street, male-dominated industry, worked harder than any three men, and so it was a very interesting. Interesting is really the wrong word. It's too weak a word. I saw the world through her eyes, although she would probably say I didn't fully grasp it. But every day for 30 years, you hear these stories, and like, you know, I don't need to repeat them. It's all like, I said this, nobody listened. The guy says it, they do it. And not all, Moni, because she's immensely successful, still is. But it just gave me, I had the unorthodox career, and she had the really, really, highly professional investment career. So we had a different type of household, and we had, three kids and three dogs and a full-time babysitter, and I'm not sure that's at all a typical upbringing. It was the way we did it because we both traveled. I for a number of years was a speaker and literally ran around the world. She commuted into New York all the time. I would say that if anything you want to really test, say it skillfully, it would be in a relationship like that, by which I mean where there's so much pressure on each of you, but also where you also have to maintain, what lessons are we giving to the kids, and it matters more what you do than what you tell them to do. And I by no means think we got it all right. I think, man, have I learned a lot since then. But I think in some ways, even when I say, wow, that was really challenging, I think we had it lucky compared to most people. And it still was challenging.
When you think about, back then balancing just a major balancing act, right? Like doing
Mhm.
it all. And as you said, like succeeding at it, right? Optically, like it all looks like it's pulling it together. If you look at that self back then and now, what has shifted for you in mindset or thinking? What's kind of evolved, or what did you give yourself permission to do that maybe you didn't years back?
Well, so I actually think that the flip side of initiative is selfishness. I'm not sure there might be a logical flaw in there, but in my life, I think that's true. And because, initiative, basically, you want something, you go do it. And I think that my lesson is I can be selfish because I'm so driven to, like, if I want something, like you said, like, if I see an idea, I glom onto it. If I see anything that excites me or attracts me, I just go for it. And that is not always the best strategy in a relationship. And by that I mean not just being married or significant other, but also in a family. And that's if I had to do something different, have been more aware of that. Although I, to this day, I still don't know how to navigate. So what you were asking about my brother would come to town. There'd be five of us because three kids, and the mom and dad, and he would be sitting, and he would always have a completely different opinion. Let's go to the circus. Let's go to Broadway. He'd say, you have like seven opinions. You only have five people. Nobody wants to do the same thing. And that was the case. And so I know why a lot of times I push to finally just say, let's just all go skiing. Because I like skiing and I knew it'd be fun. And, but part of it was I was driven to do the things I was excited about. Part of it is like, we're going to sit here for the next year and nobody's going to make a decision unless I do. But I think, I could have like made some decisions that were like, let's do what Melissa wants to do instead of what, I want to do. And so I still fight that one. Like, I don't think that's, I will ever be that good at just saying like, you have it, you have the last piece of cake. I struggle with that one.
The awareness is great, and it is what it is. And as long as you can work with it, Bruce, I think that's amazing. So enlighten listeners a little bit, because you have a very varied career. And I just love if you don't mind taking folks through the different environments you've been in, and you have quite an eclectic, skill set and experiences.
Okay, so really quickly, public television, go to business school, join the Danbury Mint, where I started the first precision crafted die-cast collectible model car business, which meant I went to Asia 14 times in 3 years to start two factories. They're factories, but they basically were to make these precision crafted models, and then would come back and did the marketing, and we generated $20 million worth of sales in 3 years. And then I quit, and then I started my own company, which was the Sunday comic store, which was selling kind of t-shirts and coffee mugs based on 29 comic strips that I licensed. So that was a real entrepreneurial venture. And then I sold that for a tiny amount of money, and I went to Ogilvy Mather, which I did the IBM thing. And then really the kind of most interesting thing I did was I joined these two people, John Peppers and Martha Rogers, who'd written a book, The One-to-One Future. That was when the web was starting up. And that book came out at the exact right time. And they had this concept called one-to-one marketing, which was treating different customers differently. And it was the precursor to personalization, which is the strategy that Amazon and everybody else uses now. You remember what customers tell you, so they can make it easier for them to order more. And so I went around the world. We went from 10 to 150 people in 3 years. I started and ran the training and the interactive and the research parts of our business. Gave probably 150 speeches in 3 years. Built training programs. And then raised venture capital, start my own version of that. Went a couple of years, ran out of money when the dot-com thing came. And then I had like 10 years of being a consultant, being a speaker, being a trainer, until I drifted kicking and screaming into being a social media ghostwriter, which really happened because so this is me having initiative. I think it's 2012, LinkedIn decided we're going to put content on LinkedIn. We're not just going to be a resume site. And they announced that they had made 100 people LinkedIn influencers like Barack Obama and Richard Branson, and only those people could publish on LinkedIn. And for whatever reason, the week I heard that, I was like, I got to be in there, which is a completely illogical, irrational thought. But I figured out who the executive editor of LinkedIn was and is, same person. And I sent him a note. And I just come out with a book with a partner called Smart Customers, Stupid Companies, about how companies were not adopting these technologies that we had been going around the world speaking about. And in the same week, he let me in. And I think there were 3 people who pitched their way into that program. So I became a LinkedIn influencer. And for years, I was one of about 125 people who could publish on LinkedIn and nobody else could. And it changed my life because I had really had enough of marketing. And I got to write about anything I wanted, and people would read it because there were only 125 of us publishing, and LinkedIn promoted everything that we wrote. At one point, actually for over a year, I wrote more content on LinkedIn than any other person in the entire world. I mean, any other person. Because everybody else was famous and I was not. So I just had to work like 5 times as hard to get attention. And I started writing about how to do well by doing good. And to this day, that's what I care about and what I try and write about. And I try and write about, bringing humanity back into business. And then the last thing I would say is that right now I've started using the co-creator description because what I really realized gives me I do best and it gives me the most pleasure is to magnify the talent of talented people. And I mean, you're a great example of, you have so much inside of you and you want to do so much for the world and you have so many ideas and you just need it's kind of a foil to like kick around ideas and say like, what if we did this? What if we did that? And I find the same thing with myself, that sometimes I get stuck and I just need someone's help. You've done that for me. And I love doing that. I love this person has the talent to do amazing things. They might have a book in them, might have a company in them, they might have a training program in them, might have all 3. And I just love okay, I'll put my head together with yours and I'll help, that come out of you. And so this right now is absolutely like the best job I've ever had out of all those things.
I know how much it is you, and we're going to come back to this. Let me ask, as you've had this notion of seeing opportunity, selling, creating products in all certain different verticals. Just share a little bit with listeners about your aha learnings in marketing and the human psyche, just the world according to Bruce. I'd just love to hear some of the takeaways you have over the decades of what you've kind of learned about the human psychology.
Well, so in order to do that part of marketing and customer experience and personalization, I had to adopt a definition of what intelligence is. This goes back to the days when I was speaking a lot. And what I came up with was that intelligence is having something of value to say and knowing what is valuable to different people. Meaning, if I go around saying the same thing to every person I encounter, that's not intelligent. If I understand how Molly is different from Marshall, and what I would say different to Molly and to Marshall, and if I can translate that to a business level, meaning that I can have a company that knows how those 2 people are different, or how IBM is different from Johnson & Johnson, or how the medical products division is different from the healthcare pharmaceutical division, and what their needs are, that is a completely unfair advantage. And it will set me apart from all the others, whether we're talking interpersonally or whether we're talking B2B. And so knowing what to do differently, what to say differently for different people, for different businesses, for different divisions, I don't even want to say more than one, because that is far and away the biggest lesson I've ever learned.
Period. Okay. We're not going to spoil that. That's genius. I love that. I'm curious about the co-creator and what you think your genius is to helping others. And I say this for listeners because it's important. It's imperative that we all know, what is it that's our secret sauce, and to be able to articulate it. So, Bruce, how would you articulate your genius?
I would say that my genius is my weakness. And that is that if I don't, so you're starting to think about it. I've been kind of been in the role of a social media ghostwriter, up until this point. And which means that I need to be able to listen to you well enough to enunciate what you want to say, not only as good as you, but a little bit better than you. So I have to be able to listen. But more than that, I have to be able to completely understand what you're trying to communicate to me. And so if I don't understand, I keep asking questions and I keep pulling the thread. And even if you say, oh, no, that's good, you get it. But if I don't understand it, I keep pulling the thread. And so it can be annoying as hell, but it's my greatest strength, because in pulling the thread when I'm working with somebody, which again, short term can be a little bit annoying, things come out of that person or a group that are significantly more valuable than if I didn't do that, because I'm helping them to go to, what is it you're really trying to do? Why are you trying to do this? What sets you apart? What do you know that other people don't know? Who can benefit? And without asking just all of those kind of, I don't mean to say stupid marketing questions, but I do mean stupid marketing questions. Like, I have fascinating conversations with people. We both love it. And we end up with insights simply because I am trying to fully and completely understand what it is that's going on in your head, your heart, your soul. And amazing, I mean, stunningly amazing things come out, because we all have that inside of us. That is, we all have this magic inside of us, but usually nobody even notices. And I notice, just because I'm trying to dig deep with you.
What's going on in your head, heart, and soul? And Bruce is helping us unlock this magic within us. I love that. There's some marketing thing there, Bruce. That's really just, I can attest to this for listeners, because, there's nothing more awesome when someone kind of parrots back for you. You're like, yeah. And that's better than I said it. There is nothing better than that, people. Like, it's totally spectacular. So, having created this business, and I love the kicking and screaming part. So would you just talk a little bit about the entrepreneurial journey and how you've pivoted in figuring out how to create this dream business? Because I love this show highlighting people who have persevered to find their true north, to succeed on their terms, and I just think you're a poster child for it, Bruce.
Well, thank you for saying that. I think the tough part is to narrow what you do. And I've noticed that people are terrified of that. So for example, I compete theoretically with every writer on the planet. And I see people some who are way more talented than me, and some who, could be if they just did one thing. So when I see a writer who says, oh, I do copywriting, and I do books, and I do social media posts, and I do book jacket blurbs, and I think, wow, you're just like, well, on the one hand, you might think I'm incredibly versatile, but you're not specializing. So therefore you're kind of okay at all those things. And you're probably making, a tenth of what you could be making, and you're not leveraging your talent. And the reason they do that usually is because they say, well, I don't ever want to turn down work. I need work. I just went out as a freelancer, got fired off my job, and I need work. But in reality, doing one thing. So for example, saying I'm a social media ghostwriter, which is a very specific term, which is like one of the smartest things I ever did. Because first of all, it let me have a niche in which I could be, I could make the case I'm one of the best, or this is all I do. It lets you get better and better at it. One of the biggest advantages to me was I went from, probably 10 years ago, having so many conversations about every entrepreneurial opportunity and every potential thing that I could do, which wasted a day a week, if not more, maybe two, to I only do one thing. And And, I would send people an email if they sent me an inquiry. To this day, I will do that. And it says, here's what I do. If this sounds great, I'll be happy to get on the phone with you. But this is the only thing I do. It's like Alan Mullally saying, you can do anything you want at work, but here's how we do it here. And that's it. And so that in my little tiny world, that's it. That's the way I do it. If this sounds great to you, wonderful. I'd love to work with you for the next 10 years, but that's all I do. And it's freeing. It feels the opposite, but it's freeing. It lets you add a lot more value, and it lets you have clarity over not only how do I add value, but how do I get better at this one thing I do.
So Bruce, was that just intuitively obvious as you were going, or was there a certain moment
Hell
where
no.
wait a second?
Hell no. No, I fought kicking and screaming. I mean, the first year I was on LinkedIn, and when they were starting to open it up to other people, and I had ghostwritten one book just on a lark in 2006. It's a long story. It's not worth going into, but so I had ghostwriting on my profile, and people started asking me, "Oh, do you help other people? Will you help us?" And for a year, I said no. I'm like, that's not what I do. I thought I was a marketing consultant, and I was speaking and training and all this. And only when we started to look at, Molly knows, for 8 years I owned a house in Park City, Utah. I just sold it, and only when I started to realize that we were actually going to buy this house in Park City, and I would be 2 miles from a ski slope. And then it dawned on me, like, wait a minute, if I was doing social media ghostwriting, I would have maybe an hour or two during the day I could go skiing. And so a really backdoor way of getting to say, okay, well, then I'll consider it. And what I've seen since, I'm working on a project right now that actually I wrote this post, was it today? Yeah, today. That basically said we can't even imagine the best possible life for ourselves unless we take like 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 iterations of it. You do one, that's it, do it again, do it again, do it again. And I'm evidence of that. It took me a year to accept this smartest move ever, just because I was stubborn and stupid.
And now you can't even imagine like what it would be like without it, because the flexibility is just.
But I still can't. I mean, in fairness, I am doing something that a lot of people haven't yet done. I hope I will convince more people to do, because that's part of the reason why I'm doing it now. It takes a lot of effort to actually figure out what you should be doing. Most of us, I think, we do a version, a subset of what we should be doing. But nowhere close, and nowhere close to what we could do, because we spend all our lives being told, "Oh, you can't do that. No, forget it. No way. No, not you. Other people, not you." And we accept it, and it happens so much that we don't even realize that we are being limited by all the evidence around us that people gave to us that reduces our potential.
Thank you for just articulating the Molly phrase, do the work. That's it, folks. You got to do the work to figure it out. And most don't. And when you take the time and go through the ups and downs and sidewaysness of it, it may be quite uncomfortable and quite unpleasant in the journey, but you're just proof point that it's totally worth it. I think part of the joy that you exude, Bruce, is you really took initiative in your personal life. And I would just love if you don't mind sharing, because I think a lot of people are looking for love, and I really admired you and how you took it on. And if you don't just mind saying a little bit about that, I think it might hopefully give some folks some ideas about how they might, take the initiative as you did.
So what Molly's talking about is when I separated and got divorced a few years back, and I spent the first 3 or 4 months being like, oh my God, this is not going to be good. And it's like you're married for 3 decades, you don't think about dating, and I actually, once I got over the I can't do this, this is going to be horrible phase, I just jumped into it, and I used online mostly. I tried to get people to introduce me, but that didn't really work very well. And I used online dating. I would be in 5 services probably at a time, um, and I just viewed it as a chance to meet interesting people. And because I was in Utah at the time, I it was very easy to like, hey, do you want to go for a hike, or do you want to have iced tea? Um, and I met a ton of interesting people. Um, I had different experiences, like you know, going out on a blind date with a woman and her niece-in-law, her niece's husband, who was like, we just started a brewery in Park City. So I had all sorts of, just fun experiences, and I ended up but then bad story. I was dating a woman for a while, so I had some success. So dating a woman for a while, and broke up just as COVID started, or just before, like a month and a half before. And then COVID starts, and I think, oh my God, that was really bad timing. Like, I'm alone, literally, I'm alone in Park City in this big house, and this COVID, and everybody's locking down. What do we do? And I got incredibly lucky, and so I just focused on like rewriting. I wish I remembered the name of this woman. There's a TED Talk about how this woman completely used data science to figure out dating online, and I took some of her advice, which was, you're not trying to attract everybody, just try and attract the one person. And I attracted this woman, Joan, who Molly, who found me in August of 2020, and who lived in Seattle, and she came for the weekend, and she has never left. And we've since moved to Vermont, and so, but yeah, it was like 50 dates, actually, isn't that a movie? But except I think it's with one person. But yeah, I just kept at it until I kept like, rewrite it. It's not working. Rewrite your profile. And so I did that. And actually, my best secret is that I would absolutely recommend this is for like an hour, set yourself as the opposite, if you're opposite sex or opposite gender, whatever it is that you're doing, so that you can see a dating site through the eyes of the other, whoever you're trying to attract, which took me a year to figure that out. But you realize, oh my God, guys are jerks. So I figured, don't be a jerk and you'll be fine. So
Thank you for sharing that, Bruce. It was just heartening. I was just wowed by you. And it's so heartening that it just all came together. And I just think the way you thought about it, embracing the process, if you will, and what's meant to be is meant to be. So it's just been joyous. I have to say, it's been joyous for me to know that you and Joan are having a grand time.
The 5-second thing I would say is that there were plenty of times in the middle of that I thought, oh my God, I'm out of ideas. So I think a big part of it is to get through those weekends or weeks or months that you think, this is just, what am I going to do? And persevere.
Yeah. It's so awesome. Let me just ask about your work motivation as something, you figured out you're this ghostwriter, but what truly, Bruce, drives you to do it the way you do it?
So I can say the positive or negative. I love going deep. I love understanding why people work the way they do, why some ideas work, why some don't. And I really dislike superficiality. I mean, I can be just friendly and give you a hug, but I'm happiest when I go deep and really, understand other people. And so I'm just completely, like Pavlov's dog, like I just love going deep. So anytime I have the opportunity to, if I can go deep with smart people, interesting, not just smart, interesting people, dynamic people, I just love it. It's what makes me feel alive. So I just look for those opportunities. And sometimes I think, I hope none of my clients are listening, but I love it. I mean, if I didn't get paid, I'd still love it. I learn, and I'm not sure I get smarter, but I get more knowledgeable about the way people really work.
Yeah, I think you are getting smarter on that. So, Bruce, what site can people go to learn more?
It's just my last name, KASANOFF.com. Anything you want to know, it has many of my different links to all my newsletters and the individual issues and all these articles in my books.
Yeah, I just, I could not any more wholeheartedly endorse folks going in and just taking a read. The way Bruce simplifies gives you permission to do what I think you need to do, but most people aren't doing. And then for anyone who is in the market for a ghostwriter, like huge endorsement here because you just can't go wrong. And it, watching you partner with people and just the mutual win-win, you grow, they grow, is great. And, I really say this, I think Bruce and I as well, just to be able to kind of wake up and just like love doing it and you would do it for free is a real gift, and I do want people to realize that that takes some work. It just doesn't kind of magically happen for folks. If you want it, it's there for your taking, if you do the work. So,
Thank you, Mo.
I've been really blessed, and I know how much of a difference you make for a lot of folks in amplifying their voice. We should segue to the Say It Skillfully part of the show. So, Bruce, do you have a tough conversation that is current or maybe in the past? We can unpack
Yeah,
it.
I mean, what I find to be the toughest conversation is when the person you're talking to is highly sensitive. I mean, they don't have confidence. They're easily hurt. Their feelings are hurt. They feel threatened, and you have to give them feedback. And I have tried, being tactful and being, understanding and being non-threatening and saying something positive first, but I still feel like it is immensely difficult because I feel there's a number of circumstances where all they hear is he doesn't like me. He thinks I'm stupid. He doesn't think I can do the job. And I've kind of never really figured out how to manage that.
Yeah, thank you for raising that. That's on top of mind. Like everybody's nodding their head. Oh yeah, I've been there. So listen, the me, you, we framework, right? So the me is starting with what's going on for Bruce. And I understand that you might think they're not confident, that they're going to respond in a certain way. And that's totally valid. It's just ask yourself what you're feeling. And then like, how does that cause you to show up for the other person? And making sure that inadvertently that's not causing you to come up in a way that isn't what you're about, which I would offer is you're there because you care and you want to help. And that's just so natural for you. It's so natural for you. So it can be tempting to kind of go to the thing, but if you can just look at someone and acknowledge, hey, I see how hard you're working. I see sometimes that maybe you don't seem as confident. I just want you to know I'm really confident in you. And I care deeply about you and I want to help. That's the thing you want to lean into. And that's the 80% in whatever Bruce way. And I know that you can do that. Right. And so then you say, okay, so you get it. I want to make sure, do you realize I'm here for you? And just make sure they come back, and say, well, just work it through because that's the most important part. So if you get that and then they realize, so this is the thing, I noticed something and it may not be landing in the way that you think. And I want to bring it up so that it gives you a chance to think about if you might want to do something different. To see how they
giving them a lot of control over the situation.
100%. Because you're good. Bruce is good. You're like, I'm good. So, and I'm saying this because I want you to be, as impactful as you can be. I think what you're doing is great. I just could imagine that other people aren't receiving it the way you like, which is not on you, right? But you have to figure out, how do I communicate? How do you communicate to them in a way that lands for them?
Right.
So I'll just pause there. How's that landing?
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that my natural tendency is to be a little bit more, process oriented. Oh, I got to tell him something that he's not going to want to hear. And I think to a certain extent, it freezes me and others, and all of us, from being as I'm here for you, and you can judge how you want to handle this. When I do this, I'm a little bit deer in the headlights, and I don't think as clearly as I normally do, because I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be bad. And I think what I hear from you is, stop bringing my own baggage into that.
Yeah, I think that's a great learn. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the point is, like, how does that serve me? Thinking this is going to go bad, thinking that this person's going to hate me, thinking that, like, really? So you're making it harder. I'd ask you to don't be my worst enemy. How can Bruce be his best friend? Saying, hey, you're a good guy. You really want to help him. You do your best. You can't control how it lands for them, but you can do your best to set it up in a way whereby you think it will land well. So again, that part you have to realize that you can't control how they respond.
That's great. Thank you.
Well, thank you for asking, and we could go on and on. I'm just going to close and ask you, Bruce, what was it like for you to share your journey with us today?
Oh, it's fun. I love talking to you. So I talked to you all night. So this is just a real pleasure.
Well, I am just smiling big time for you. I just want to thank you, Bruce, for being you, for being genuinely you. And you inspire me and all of us to be real, to focus on serving. His mantra, folks, on LinkedIn: serve, don't sell, and the rest will follow. So I'm just grateful for your support, for your encouragement, and most of all, your friendship. You are a big part of the solution in the world. We need more Bruces in the world. And however I can be helpful, I'm here for you. So I'm cheering for you, Bruce. You take good care.
Well, thank you, and keep going. You're doing such a great job with Say It Skillfully. So keep going. This is great. You are going to change the world.
Yeah, we are going to change the world. So I'm grateful for your support, and the best is definitely yet to come. So we'll talk soon.
Okay. Thanks, Molly.
Okay, folks. Just amazing. So my thought for the week, inspired by Bruce: be yourself, but not obsessed with being yourself. And that's a wrap, folks. Thank you for tuning in. Please be part of the solution and kindly share this show. Amplify Bruce's voice. Reflect on your top takeaways. And no, I'm cheering for you to be who you are and say what needs to be said so that you and those around you have a shared reality, essential to make the best decisions, execute with speed, and achieve outstanding outcomes at work and in life.
Thanks for listening to Say It Skillfully with host Molly Chang. Join us again for more ways to say it skillfully next Tuesday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 8 a.m. Pacific on the Voice America Business Channel. Follow Molly on LinkedIn and Twitter. Check out sayitskillfully.com and sign up so you don't miss her latest 90-second video. And please, be part of the solution. Kindly tell others about this program so they say it skillfully too.